Hello, everybody, and welcome to LoreMaster Investigations, where we sit on top of our floating castle, grab our hand eating book, and talk about tabletop role playing games. I'm Cody.
I'm Joe. He doesn't eat our hands.
He
He
ate
eats our
mine last time.
he eats our answers.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean,
He's sated by
ideally,
knowledge.
yeah, but that's in an ideal scenario. If
Well,
worst comes to
okay.
worst, he will eat a hand if knowledge is not present.
Oh man. Well, I guess that must have happened when I wasn't in the room. Zing. I
Oh,
I,
snap,
I
because, it's where we don't record in the same room.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Or the more topical thing of the thing that's
Uh-huh.
happening around the
Yes.
world.
That thing.
Yeah,
That
that
yep.
one, that thing.
Why we're all yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Hey,
s-
speaking of that thing, what nerdy stuff have you been up to recently?
oh, nerdy stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's so much easier
More
to engage with media now.
right. Mostly Destiny 2 at this point.
Okay.
I'm just playing more of that because like right now there's like a bunch of stuff coming out like this'll date the week, but the new one of the new guns just came out and it's got like a huge quest to get it, and it's like it is arguably one of the most interesting guns to be included in the game because when you kill somebody with it, it drops an orb that you can use to
Ooh.
punch people with.
Oh, so it's like a is it like a shotgun?
Oh, no, it's called a trace rifle, which is basically like a laser beam, right? Like if you could
Huh.
imagine like a continuous Star Wars laser beam, but
Sure.
then every time you kill with it, it drops an orb, and then when you pick it up, you can like punch people or like you can like spike it into the ground and do a ton of damage. Like it's arguably one of the
Interesting.
weirdest guns, and I'm looking forward to actually playing with it when I do
Yeah.
get it.
I don't know, it sounds to me like that's like the optimal that's like an optimal like shotgun build just
Yeah,
cuz
I mean,
that's a gun that rewards close combat, so if you hit punch, it's kind of
yeah, no, I
would
totally get
probably
it.
be
I
my
mean, I'm sure there's people out
dynamic.
there working on like melee focused builds or like, close up shotgun builds where it's like I use this and then it's just absolute carnage. But what about
Yeah.
you? What nerdy stuff have you been up to?
Oh man. I've been diving a lot on my Animal Crossing island.
Oh, I
Have
thought
you
you meant like sea diving in real life. I'm like, damn, all right.
have you explored that new feature yet or
No,
on Animal Crossing?
I
I know
have
you kind of
not
have like fallen
explored
off
the
the horse a
summer.
little bit. Um
Dude, I I only have room in my life for one thing that demands my complete entire
oh,
attention.
hey man, I get it. Like
And so, at first it was Animal Crossing cuz like, we had the thing come around that's, making
uh-huh.
its world tour, and it felt nice to
Ooh,
have,
that's a way of
live a
thinking
bit
about
of
it.
yeah, it was a way of, kind of maintaining normalcy in a time that wasn't so normal. And
Sure.
then I got back into Destiny 2, and it's like, well, I could hang out with all my animal friends and collect bells and stuff, or I can shoot aliens as a space zombie. So I chose the space zombie in this moment. I'm sure I'll go back to it when
Oh
like
yeah.
the Destiny 2 content starts to dry up, because it's usually how it pans out in like the last part of the season. Like there's like a month or two left, and it's like, well, that's it. And then you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just go back to doing whatever. So, I'm
Well,
sure I'll be back, but I heard that the summer thing has, you know, I keep hearing about, so like I see these like updates, right, for Animal Crossing,
sure.
and I keep hearing that a lot of these features were in other past Animal Crossing games, and I'm starting to feel like this is the most well received AAA early access game I've ever experienced in my life.
Okay. What, just in
Because
that it's
like,
like the whole game wasn't available at launch?
yeah, or like a lot of these features are like slowly being dripped out instead of like because like if you were to look at a normal AAA game, like what Animal Crossing is doing right now would have been like screamed at, like absolutely torn apart. Like this would have been like, you know Game Magazine's worst bullshit companies, Animal Crossing. Ugh, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I mean, I
I
suppose the
get
fact that
it.
it's like free updates
Sure.
is nice. Like they're not charging you, so it's like it's not like you're sitting there like with your base game, like watching your friends having fun, like diving into the ocean, and
Right,
you're
right.
just like, oh man, and like Tom Nook is sitting there, and it's like for like $50, and you're like, you mean Bell's right? He's like, nah, I mean those dead presidents, motherfucker. Like, you know what I mean though? Like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I totally get the idea that it's free,
and like,
but like I don't know. I spent like a shit ton of I think I wouldn't have dropped off so hard if I would have had some of these things as the game came out, I guess. Cuz like
hmm,
I think I plugged in I don't have my timesheet whatever I don't know if
your
the game is
timesheet.
tracking that, but I like that first day, I was like, this game's great. I think I literally played it all day. Like I listened to the almost the entire day soundtrack
Hmm,
and then some. Just and that's not even including the ladder or the pole vaulting stick that you need to access the other parts of your island. I literally just went to my island, got some Nook Mile tickets, upgraded my home, and I think I went to a couple of those island tours where you meet other animal folk.
sure.
And I don't know, it would have been cool to have diving earlier, because
I mean,
sometimes I'd be like, man, I'm kind of out of stuff to do, but I still want to keep playing. And then it's like, well, guess it's time to close up shop. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, I guess in like a weird way, and I think this is kind of interesting. Is it's like for me, I feel like the opposite way in a weird way, where it's like I was kind of getting like I wasn't necessarily getting burned out, but I wasn't also spending oodles of time on it. Like I think I would play like maybe at most like an hour and a half a day or so.
Okay.
And so I don't feel like I was necessarily burning myself out. Although that kind of had changed in like recent weeks where I was kind of like, all right, like I think I've caught all of the fish. Like I'm not a crazy
Right.
person who like goes to like those websites where they like lay out charts and like give you like percentiles of like, well, if you drop it on this corner versus this corner. um but it was one of those deals where it's like I wasn't playing that much, and I feel like it's interesting because like this game is arguably like one of those deals, and like I say, like this isn't intended to be negative, but it's certainly one of those deals where it's like hit the button, get the treat kind of deal, you
Yeah.
know, where
Yeah, the gameplay loop is fairly basic's not the right word because that feels like it's insulting it, but it's like
sure.
it is you do these things, you get the thing. And
Well, and then suddenly it just felt so much more vibrant because like you get a whole new page of your Careerpedia, and like that first day, like I didn't even, once again, I didn't play that much. I think I played maybe like 2 hours that first day that you could
sure.
go diving, and it's just really exciting to see that, yes, and like in such high quantities for the first time in so long. Like even at the first of the month when there are like new bugs and new fish available, like they're still like the thing with the sea critters was the fact that it was like literally that first time you went diving, like there was a good chance one in every like 3 dives you were going to come up with a new item, and it's like, ooh, that kind of like fired the pleasure center in my brain a little bit, you know
Right. Yeah.
because it's like, ooh, I did a thing. But anyway, there's
Yeah.
there's can I just tell you about my two favorite things about it?
Yeah.
So I don't know if regular Gulliver is going to still be around, but
Okay.
on my beach, I met Gullivar, who is a
Ooh.
pirate version of Gulliver,
Nice.
and you have to go diving for his communicator instead of digging for communicator parts. And then he gives you pirate themed items in your mailbox.
Oh, nice. I
Uh,
have the pirate door thing where it's like my
nice.
door has like a skull and sabers or something on it. It's
That's
pretty
pretty
rad.
cool. Jolly Roger.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And then the other one is there's a new character named Pascal, who I think was in former Animal Crossing games.
Okay.
But it's interesting. So like he's an otter, and when you catch a scallop, he swings by and he's like, "Hey, can I have your scallop, man? Like, I'll give you something cool if you give me your scallop." And then he like drops you with like some stoner words of wisdom. Um,
Neat. I like it.
and so like once again, I think it's like another one of those deals where it's like, with like a character like Flick or CJ, where you have to wait for them. Like Pascal shows up for your first scallop every single day, and so it's like kind of become part of the routine, if you will.
Right,
Where
right.
it's like, go say hi to the Able sisters, maybe buy something from the Able store, get my scallop for Pascal, like go put some bells into the ATM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I definitely I understand where you're coming from, but I feel like the fact that I didn't play quite as much initially might have kept that fun factor going a little bit longer for me personally. So
Yeah. I mean, definitely. It makes sense because, like, I do that with games, though. It's like, I don't have a. Unless I'm really pressed for time, which happens, um, I don't play a game casually. I play hard and constantly do the like. I played this game for 100 hours and then burnt myself out from ever playing that game. Now I move on to the next game and do the same goddamn thing. So I totally get that. Maybe, just maybe, I burned myself out on Animal Crossing because I'm a fucking animal. I
and
just
you're
kept hitting
crossing.
that button. I was like, give me the treats, give me the treats, give me those bills. God damn it.
Oh yeah.
So, anyways,
But anyway,
let's talk
the
about tabletop role playing games.
the book is growling.
I know. I'd heard it in the
Grr
background a little bit.
grr grumble grr, says the book.
Grr.
Oh
Yeah.
man. So anyway, he jumped up on my lap and I like, I petted the spine in the right way, and here's the question.
Yeah.
Hey LoreMasters, um long time listener, because I'm the one who writes, I'm one half of the team that writes the show. I'm
Sure.
writing in with a question. Uh what do you do when you get into creative blocks slash gain inspiration? So
Yes.
I thought this was kind of interesting because I feel like we this is one of those interesting topics where it's cool to have both a DM and a player perspective.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so yeah, so I have some thoughts on like approaching these creative blocks from like a player character way, because it's only natural that sometimes we fall into these creative blocks, or like the character that you're playing isn't quite as exciting for you, or isn't quite like hey, like you're playing a game either weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. It's sometimes you reach a point where you're just like, ugh, man. So I think it's important to sometimes like think about ways to inject some life into your player, into your character. And I'm assuming you have some directions from the DM side of things, the other side of the
Yeah.
screen.
Nope,
So
I actually just did player this time. I figured
hey,
I'd
I
flip
mean,
the
fair
script.
enough. Fair enough. I mean, but what I'm saying is like sometimes the questions are like very focused one way or the other. You
Right.
know, I feel like
No,
this one's one of those
this one was
fascinating
great.
ones that both sides of the screen, as it
Yeah,
were,
100%.
can get into it. So I'm going to do my first one if that's all right with
Yeah.
you.
Hit me
Uh,
with
so,
that
s-
inspiration number 1.
yeah. So for my first one, um, I will try to find media to help like boost my creative juices. So for me personally, like I personally find that many of my characters draw some level of inspiration from characters from like a book or movie or television or comics or things like that. And I think that um this is only natural. I think we all like to think of ourselves as these completely original thinkers, but obviously the things that we engage with media wise are important to like who, the things that we create. So I find that sometimes it's smart to go back to the source, as it were, and maybe like find an episode or a chapter or a sequence or whatever that reminds you of why you wanted to build a character like that in the first place. Now conversely, um there's this awesome website out there called TV Tropes, that I love to play around on. And a lot of times, if you search a character, they will like kind of give you things that this character falls into. And a lot of times, the character will fall into a similar, if you like this character, you might be interested in looking at characters from like this or this or this. And maybe it's time to go and like maybe find like look at that list and find something from that list. And it's like, okay, maybe I can bring in an element of this character to add a little bit of juice to it. So that's my first thought is I think it's always good to go back to the source and kind of find that thing that made you fall in love with that character in the first place. So
Yeah, totally get it. And I get it so much that that's also my first
I had an inkling.
inspiration. Yeah,
I
I
had an
had a
inkling,
feeling
but
we were gonna double dip a little bit, but I'll
I'm
talk
fascinated
about
to
it
hear about
from
it from the DM perspective. So
yeah. So if usually when a DM, GM, whatever gets into one of these blocks, like it's for a myriad of reasons with your campaign. Like there's so many different things, like whether it's the plot or how do you handle a character's like kind of motivation going forward or whatever. I also find myself engaging with a lot of media. And there's two things to this. First off, if you are trying to create a certain type of campaign, whether like if you're like me, sometimes I have a goal with my campaign, like I want to run this or I want to run that. So like in our current game, I wanted to run a kind of X-Files slash supernatural style game where the campaigns and like the arcs were very episodic and didn't like they have an overarching plot, but like they're their own contained adventures, but like have that weird like conspiracy occult supernatural vibe to it. And you bet sure as shit I watched all of X-Files. I watched most of the supernatural shows, got tons of inspiration for the different types of characters, the types of like the types of shenanigans that the characters will get into.
hmm
um and so to get those, and like I said, and to help me to get that mystery element, that conspiracy level, because I really wanted there to be a villain or this like kind of background setting where like there's a huge conspiracy going on. So I took a lot from like X-Files and other media that I was watching at the time. um and I also wanted some more, like I wanted some more drama. I wanted the
sure,
stakes to be a little higher. I wanted things to be a little more intense than our first romp through Dungeons and Dragons. So like I found myself watching a lot of those like murder mystery shows. Like I watched a lot of Twin Peaks. I watched like a lot of Sherlock. There's a new show out that I was watching or that I saw called Hannibal that's
okay,
on Netflix. Like I started watching a lot of those things and was getting a lot of ways to like create dramatic twists or just creating tension that's so thick that you can taste it, kind of a thing. I think you should engage in the media that relates to your game, but you should also always be trying to engage with more media, because the more media you watch, the more things you can kind of pull from. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, you're homebrewing your own stuff, but you need inspiration. And I find that media, whether it's television, movies, video games, books, comic books, whatever you have, like, use that. And sure, some people might catch your references or whatever, like if it's just for you, but like those are, that's part of the fun, is like how would you handle that thing yourself. And like you can
sure,
put spins on that and it becomes your, like, even though like say you, because like one of my arcs I borrowed very heavily from Alice in Wonderland, but I made a huge twist on it and went, what if it was like Alice in Wonderland, but I made it like dark and, there's a murder mystery going on and there's like, there's a conspiracy behind it, just like the rest of the game. Like, then it kind of becomes my own thing. And sometimes it becomes almost unrecognizable except for maybe some like verbiage that's being used.
hmm
And there's tons of media out there to engage you with. So that is my inspiration tip number one, is just engage in media as a whole, because you're gonna find, like I do it with plot, characters, certain NPCs. I just rip like man, I really like that character's motivation. I'm going to use that, but like give them a Western cowboy accent. Or,
Hmm.
man, I really liked the badass chick in this show. I'm going to like use her, but like give her a different set of motivation. Like, media
Sure.
helps so much with like getting out of ruts.
Heck yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's a good thought. Okay, so for my next one, from a number 2,
Yeah.
from once again, from the player perspective, find a new angle for your character. So, like, if you go back to the source and you aren't necessarily finding something that is inspiring to you or exciting you in any way, think of like a new angle. Lean into something that has potentially come up organically or something to send your character like down a new path. So, I think, the character in our mind very rarely ends up being the character that we play all the time.
Well, I mean,
Um,
that's the thing about characters, right? As characters
sure.
are ever changing. Like, sure, they might be, the bumbling farm boy from Tatooine, but they end up being a teacher, a mentor, and ultimately the leader of a resistance, Like they don't
Yeah,
stay who they are from the beginning. So, yeah, I like
exactly.
this.
And I'm not suggesting that like you reinvent the wheel exactly, right? Like, oh my god, like I'm a barbarian and now I'm going to put all of my points into intelligence from here on out or something like that. Um I just think that, this change comes gradually. So like, you know, maybe so like I'm just gonna pull from a personal example. One of my very first player characters was like a big dumb barbarian named Arthal. And it was a lot of fun, but over time, like I started getting tired of the fact that my character was effectively illiterate. And so I talked to my DM about like, it's maybe nothing that translated to the in-game like conflict or anything like that, but my character wanted to learn how to read. And so that kind of maybe it was just for me, maybe it didn't necessarily affect the gameplay in general, but for me it was enough of a core to keep my personal character moving. Maybe your character has like a compulsion that they're trying to fight, like an addiction or something, or the fact that they always have to steal or something like that. I think that adding a new angle to your character can make it, if it's small enough, it can at the very least make it fun for you to add a new angle to a character. But it might be fun for the party in general to like kind of observe your character changing over time. So
Yeah, for sure. That's really rad. Um, the second bit I have is creating things in stages.
okay,
Is what I decided to call it. But basically, what it is I find a lot of time when I get burnout is I try to do everything at once, right? I need the perfect villain. I need the perfect setting, an amazing town, deep dark secrets, the perfect NPCs, relationships, etc., etc. And it gets so daunting. Don't do it all at once, right? I used to do this all the time where it was like, all right, I need to do everything, bop, 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 and then get ready before the game even began. And sometimes, and a lot of times, I ended up scrapping a lot of it because it just didn't fit anymore with what the game was or where the game was going. The best thing you can do as a DM who might be struggling with like creating something is to start small and work on little things to make up, and then have it make up the larger whole. Start small, like a town.
hmm,
Doesn't have to be crazy, but just build it up to your heart's content. And once you've reached the end, start another project. Maybe once you've got the town set up, maybe start filling it with NPCs, and maybe you get tired of making NPCs, so you make a faction, and then you're like, oh, when you've built the faction, oh, it needs a leader, and I think that leader might be this new NPC who's got a relationship with another NPC, and soon enough, when you start building in smaller steps and work on connecting all of these smaller pieces together, you have an interconnected piece that doesn't feel quite as daunting to do. Um, I whenever a campaign gets really huge, like this happens, right? Where I'm just like, I need to
sure,
somehow connect all of this stuff, um, and all of these things. And sometimes, like, if I can't think of how someone should act, I'll move on to this next bit and figure out like later what's gonna happen. Like, you don't need everything all at once. The only thing you really need is what's in front of your player's eyes. Like the back of the stage may be a completely jumbled mess until you start to slowly build it together. And that's okay, because honestly, the players will have no idea. Like, that's just like whatever you show them in front of them, like whatever you show them, that's it. Like, they're not going to know that you burned like 30 NPCs in a single town, or didn't use them because like they didn't fit the narrative or whatever. So just like work small, work your way up to those bigger things, and then connect them all together.
Yeah, for sure. Um, it like I said too, like, change comes gradually. Um,
Exactly.
okay, and then for my last one, consider giving your character a quote unquote vacation.
Okay.
Um, so obviously, like, talk this out with your party or your DM first. But if you're having a hard time like finding fun playing this character, maybe consider sending them on a solo mission or giving them time off and trying out new characters. Um, obviously, I don't think that you need to go as drastic as killing off your original character, but maybe like distancing yourself from that character for a little bit can make you remind you of why you loved the character in the first place or something like that. Sometimes it's just fun to like go to a different angle or try out a different character for a session or two. Maybe it's a little bit more extreme than that, but obviously it's something you have to talk out with your DM first. Or um it's possible maybe you can talk to your party and your DM about taking a session or two off and running a one shot, or maybe like a short counter campaign or something like in the same universe, maybe that even impacts your original one, but giving yourself maybe like a break from that character you've been playing for so long. um you know Distance makes the heart grow fonder, or whatever that expression is. By
Yeah.
giving yourself a little break, you can potentially find that original spark that made you like that character so much in the first place. Or hey, if you like the new character you're playing, maybe talk to everyone about making them a little bit more permanent. um I find that, me personally, it's like I just like skimming through the book and like thinking of weird builds of different classes and things like that, and it's like, if only I could be like, a like that monk that can control the key of like weapons for a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Um and so it's one of those deals where it's like, I'm not suggesting that everyone do this all at once, or like maybe even necessarily like making this a permanent switch or things like that, but if everyone's on board with it, maybe character A, uh, needs a break, and they're gonna go to a resort town for a couple of weeks. And then, oh, look it's our good friend Blibble Blobble.
That's a really
So
good character idea. Blibble Blobble, the goblin druid.
hell yeah. I mean, hey, wouldn't be a weird thing. But anyway, those are my kind of big three thoughts of injecting new life into
Yeah.
uh
And then my
your
final
finding
one,
inspiration.
which you'll find that is very similar to Joe's final bit.
Oh no.
We did these separately from each other and did not screen these, but that's fine because from the DM's perspective, I agree. Take a break. At the end of
Yeah,
the day, if you're finding yourself burning out and unable to come up with good stuff, take a break from your campaign and maybe just be the player or play a different game, play a board game, get your mind off of doing that stuff. It can be very difficult to come up with homebrew characters, places, and plots all the time, especially if you're running a game that's like every week or every other week. Like, I get it. That's rough. You're I would be surprised if people could run those types of games and not hit a wall at some
sure.
point. Um, Luckily for me, both of my groups take a lot of, not a lot, but they'll take breaks. And usually it's not when I want to. So like it gives me a lot of time because like I'm already like, oh, I'm invested. And so I come up with a bunch of stuff so that when we come back, I have plenty of stuff from that point further, and then some. And then when I do finally go through that, like, I can't think of anything, like, don't worry, I already created a bunch of shit. Like, I don't need to do anything like extra for like a little while. So yeah, taking a break is like, from the DM side, also a really good thing. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just as easy as being like, hey guys, I think I need a break from being the game master for a little bit. Do you guys just want to play a board game, or someone want to do like their own little mini campaign or something for like a hot minute? And I'm sure that for a lot of you, like that's totally an acceptable thing, and that works. Like honestly, take like if the other things don't work, like from all these things, because all of these are great ideas on both sides of the spectrum, take a break because sometimes you just need a break.
Yeah, for sure. Like, um, I know that there are players out there who would play every single day if they could. Um, but like, there's the fascinating thing about D&D, and one of the things that makes it so incredibly magical, I think also kind of makes it a little tiring, which is this idea of you are writing like a story with, anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 other people. And so it's like, sometimes it's you're writing and you're doing improv and you're, rolling dice and all of this stuff, and it's like, it's a lot of fun and I love doing it, but sometimes it can get a little exhausting, right? Like, playing week in and week out, like, sometimes there were weeks where it felt like going to clock in at the old D&D factory, um
Yeah, I totally get that, especially if you're playing a lot too. Like that's
sure.
also like because some people may only be able to play once a month, and that's probably like the perfect spot for a DM because you have like a whole month to prep.
Sure. Yeah.
But I play either once a week or twice every other week, depending on how schedules go. So like, sometimes I need a break, like that's a lot to be like, hey, I need to come up with grandiose plots, murder mysteries and like believable, funny characters for everybody to enjoy at any given moment. So like, yeah, I totally get, uh, you know, why people get into blocks and why these things are super helpful. Like sometimes I can't, especially because we do a tabletop role playing game show. Sometimes I can't just turn my brain off, and I have to like inspire myself during those moments because we got a show to run. So yeah,
Yeah.
I hope these help because I know they
Yeah,
help
for sure.
me when I'm in a rut. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was recently watching some stuff for some inspiration for my character recently.
Ooh, I was actually
I'm
gonna
not.
ask you like as a, like kind of the ending follow up question.
Yeah, sure.
What is the media that inspired Bomish, your half orc artificer?
It was kind of a weird two-prong thing, which was,
Okay.
I had been, listeners of the show will know, like, that I really got into Star Trek for a
Yeah.
while, and my favorite character on there was Worf, and I thought Worf was really interesting because he was a Klingon, but he was raised by humans. So like, there's like an episode where it talked about how it was like difficult for him to like fit in as a child because like he was just like this big kid living amongst like humans, and like, so like, he was playing games but he was just bigger than everyone else. And so I was like, oh my god, I want to have like a character that was raised outside of his like his culture or his society. And like, not even necessarily, I don't know if it's necessarily come in as much as I've wanted it to. But then I also was very heavily inspired by Beast from the X-Men, who
Nice.
is this big intimidating, presence. He's very athletic and he's very, but he's also very smart and he's very like, well spoken and things like that. And those are kind of the two angles I went for. I wanted a person living amongst a culture that wasn't their own, and I wanted a big guy, but who was also like very smart and like erudite and things like that.
Nice.
And then yeah, I mean, I know that you mentioned that you're really into like the X Files and things like that.
Yeah.
But I found myself too pulling for a little bit from Entrapta from Shira as well. I almost forgot.
Nice.
So yeah.
Very
Uh,
cool.
hey Cody,
Yeah.
if people liked this episode and they want to hear more, where is a place that they could hear more?
They could go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where all of our episodes go live as they hit the World Wide Web. On that website, You can also find basically a bio for us and whoever may join the Fandom Roulette network. And then if you scroll all the way down at the bottom, right above the social media links, there's a little form that you can fill out. And the nice thing about this form is it can be for anything you want. If you want to send us, fan messages, or you want like us to talk about your topics on Lore Master Investigation, or
Oh yeah.
some of our other shows like Nerdy Affair or Worldsmithing, where we kind of do different topics every so often. Feel free to hit us up there and let us know what you want to see
Yeah.
or hear.
Um
This is a
and
podcast.
I listen to enough to know that this mistake is made literally in every podcast that's ever been recorded. Hey Cody, if people wanted to share this episode with a friend, but they don't necessarily use the same like platform that they use, what are some platforms that they can send people to find our podcast?
Gosh, we're all over the place. You can find us on SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, your RSS catchers. Did I say YouTube already?
No, but you said it now, so
We're on YouTube as well. All you have to do, and basically anywhere where you can find a podcast, just search Fandom Roulette.
heck yeah. And if people want to engage with us on various social media platforms, hey, what platforms are we on, and how can they find us?
We're on a couple of them. You can tweet at us at our Twitter at fandomr_podcast if much like everything else, you want to, or much like the forum on the website, if you want to just tell us how you feel about the episodes, or your topics that you would like us to cover, feel free to hit us up on there. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram. All you got to do is search Fandom Roulette.
Heck yeah. Also, if you like this episode, please like, rate, review, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a message,
Yeah,
share
share
it
with
with
your
a friend,
friends.
ring the bell, all that stuff. Help us move up those ranks because it's a lot of fun. And if you have a good time and you think someone else might enjoy what we're bringing to the table, let them know. Word of mouth is one of the best ways to spread the love. So,
Yeah.
and now the book has fallen asleep.
Aw.
It is very content because this book has no gender. Um, and yeah, another week, another lore investigated.
Nice.
So signing off for Phantom Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.